Zayla just wanted to have fun on Halloween, but Livia, Marin, and Shayla had other plans. When they bullied her for wearing a ghost costume, little brother Elior and the kids she was watching, Evie, Lyra, Orion, and Milo, stepped in to shut them down. Watch how they taught those bullies a lesson they'll never forget. Like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Zayla's heart fluttered with a mixture of excitement and nostalgia as she looked around her cozy living room. Orange and purple lights flickered gently, casting playful shadows on the walls adorned with cobwebs and tiny plastic spiders. The scent of pumpkin spice candles filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of chocolate and candy corn that her little brother Elior had been sneaking from the pantry. She couldn't help but smile, her dark brown eyes softening as she watched him. Elior, just 8 years old, was practically vibrating with anticipation. He bounced from one foot to the other, his small hands clutching a little pumpkin-shaped bucket, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Zayla, Zayla! Halloween is tomorrow. Can we start trick-or-treating now?" he asked, his voice high-pitched and eager. Zayla laughed, shaking her head, crouching down to ruffle his hair. "Not yet, little bro. You have to wait for tonight. The costumes, the candy, the haunted houses, all the fun stuff comes tomorrow." But Elior wasn't deterred. He gazed at her with those big, pleading eyes that could melt anyone's heart. "Please, Zayla. I even picked out our costumes. You said you'd wear one with me." Zayla hesitated. She had been looking forward to Halloween, yes, but as a 16-year-old, the thought of dressing up in an over-the-top, silly costume felt a bit childish. But when she glanced at Elior, bouncing up and down with pure, unfiltered joy, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. All right, she said, holding her hands up in mock surrender. "What costume did you pick out for me?" Elior's grin was infectious. "A ghost! You have to wear it with me, please!" "It's gonna be so much fun, Zayla. Everyone will love it." Zayla suppressed a chuckle. The ghost costume wasn't what she had imagined for herself. She had been picturing something a little more cool or teenage appropriate, but the excitement in Elior's voice made her heart ache in a good way. She leaned down and knelt beside him. "You really think I should wear a ghost costume? Like a plain sheet ghost?" "Yes!" he squealed, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the closet where the costumes were stacked. "You're the best sister ever, Zayla. You always make Halloween fun for me." Zayla sighed, shaking her head with a soft smile, but let him lead the way. As they rummaged through the costumes, she could see the spark of imagination in his little eyes. "Okay," she said finally, giving in. "For you, I'll do it. But only because you're insisting," Elior squealed, hugging her tightly. "Yay, Zayla, you're the best. We're going to have the coolest Halloween ever." Later that evening, as Zayla stood in front of the mirror with the plain white sheet draped over her, she couldn't help but laugh. The little eye holes cut out by Elior were slightly crooked, giving her a comical, almost endearing appearance. Elior clapped his hands and danced around her, excited beyond measure. "You look perfect. Now we can go with Evie, Lyra, Orion, and Milo. They're all coming too." Zayla's smile widened. She adored supervising the younger kids during Halloween. It made her feel responsible, important, and somehow magical. The sound of their laughter and chatter filled the house as they prepared their small pumpkin buckets, tying scarves and adjusting hats. She felt a sense of pride in her chest. This was the kind of memory that Elior and the other kids would carry with them for years to come. As they stepped outside, the crisp autumn air embraced them. Leaves crunched beneath their feet, and the faint sound of distant laughter and spooky decorations greeted them from every corner of the neighborhood. Zayla held Elior's hand tightly, keeping a gentle but firm grip on the group of kids she was supervising. Their little feet scurried across the sidewalk, eyes wide with excitement at every lit jack-o'-lantern and every decorated porch they passed. "Zayla, look at that house," Milo shouted, pointing to a towering display of fake gravestones and skeletons. "It's scary." "I know, isn't it awesome?" Zayla replied, smiling down at him. She glanced at the other kids, Evie, Lyra, and Orion, all hopping from one foot to the other, their eyes sparkling with joy. "Remember, we stay together, okay? No running off." Elior bounced next to her, tugging gently at her ghost sheet. "Zayla, can we knock on this one first?" I want to get candy from the scariest house. All right, she laughed. But let's not scare anyone too much, okay? As they approached the first porch, Zayla noticed other teenagers walking past. Some in elaborate costumes, some sneering or whispering to each other. She felt a tiny pang of self-consciousness, but Elior's hand in hers reminded her why she was wearing the ghost costume. It wasn't for anyone else, it was for him, for the kids, for the fun of Halloween. Little did she know, tonight would test that resolve in ways she hadn't imagined. The night air was crisp, and the faint smell of autumn leaves mixed with sugary treats lingered around the quiet suburban streets. Zayla, still draped in her slightly crooked ghost sheet, led the little group of kids down the sidewalk. Each step was punctuated with giggles and exclamations of delight as they approached house after house, ringing doorbells and collecting candy. "Zayla, I can't wait to show Mom all the candy we get tonight," Evie exclaimed, her small pumpkin bucket already halfway full. Lyra jumped up and down, trying to see over Zayla's ghost sheet. "I hope they have the big chocolate bars this year." That's the best part. Orion, the quietest of the group, just grinned, his eyes shining with excitement. Milo, true to his mischievous nature, darted ahead, peeking into windows and making spooky boo noises at the other kids. Zayla chuckled beneath her sheet, enjoying the little chaos. Her heart felt warm, and she was glad she'd given in to Elior's wish for her ghost costume. But the moment of joy didn't last long. As they approached the next street corner, a group of older girls loitered near a brightly decorated porch. Zayla recognized them immediately, Livia, Marin, and Shayla. They were in their late teens, all dressed in stylish, carefully coordinated costumes that screamed confidence. The moment they spotted Zayla in her simple ghost sheet, their faces twisted into expressions of amusement. "Well, look at this," Livia sneered, stepping forward with Marin and Shayla trailing behind. "What is that? You really think wearing a ghost costume at your age is cute?" Marin laughed, flicking her hair. "Seriously, Zayla? You're 16, right? And you're wearing that? How pathetic," Shayla added, her voice dripping with mockery. "It's not even a good costume. It's just a sheet. Did your little brother make you wear it or something?" Zayla felt a flush creep up her neck. Her heart thumped painfully in her chest, and for a moment she considered just turning and walking away. She could hear Elior's excited chatter behind her, and she knew he would be crushed if she gave up. She straightened under the sheet and took a deep breath, trying to summon confidence she didn't feel. "It's my little brother's wish," Zayla said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "He wanted me to wear it. Halloween is supposed to be fun for everyone, not just for teenagers who think they're too old for costumes." The girls snickered. "Ha! That's pathetic. Do you actually expect anyone to take you seriously like that?" Livia stepped closer, looming over Zayla with an air of superiority. Marin and Shayla joined in, throwing more cutting remarks about Zayla being too old to wear a ghost costume, mocking her for looking childish and silly. The little kids behind Zayla froze, eyes wide and hearts pounding, unsure how to respond. Milo clenched his tiny fists. Evie's bottom lip trembled. Lyra and Orion looked to Zayla for guidance, their trust in her unwavering. Then Elior stepped forward. His small frame might have been dwarfed by the older girls, but his voice rang out clear and confident, cutting through the mocking laughter. "Stop it!" he shouted, pointing at them with fierce determination. "You have no right to bully my sister. She's wearing that costume for me and we're all having fun and you can't ruin it." Zayla's eyes softened at the sight of her little brother standing so bravely, his tiny fists shaking but his resolve unbroken. She had always known Elior had courage, but this was something special. The older girls blinked, momentarily taken aback. Livia's lips curled into a sneer, but before she could respond, Milo, Evie, Lyra, and Orion stepped forward as well. Their small voices combined, forming a chorus that filled the night air. "Yeah! Leave her alone!" Milo shouted. "It's Halloween. Stop being mean." "Yeah, she's doing this for her brother," Evie added. "Go away!" Lyra demanded, her tiny fists clenched. Orion nodded fiercely, standing firm beside Zayla. The older girls faltered. This wasn't the reaction they expected. They were used to teenagers cowering, ignoring, or running off when confronted. But now Zayla wasn't alone. She had a squad of little warriors behind her, each one more fearless than the last. Elior stepped closer to Zayla, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "It's okay, Zayla, we've got this." "I've got you." Zayla felt a wave of pride and gratitude. The fear she had felt moments ago melted away, replaced by determination. She looked at the bullies squarely, her voice strong and unwavering. "You're not going to ruin this night. Halloween is for everyone. I'm 16, yes, but I'm also having fun, and I'm going to make sure these kids enjoy it too. So why don't you go find someone else to bother?" The bullies exchanged glances. Livia's confidence wavered as she realized that their target wasn't intimidated. Marin and Shayla muttered under their breath, unsure how to react to the united front of Zayla and her little group. Elior stepped forward again, this time raising his voice louder. "Seriously, if you have nothing nice to say, just leave. We're having fun and you can't stop us!" Zayla felt a surge of energy. The bond she shared with Elior and the kids behind her was stronger than any mean words thrown at her. For the first time that night, she felt truly fearless. Livia tried one last jab, pointing at the ghost sheet. "You look ridiculous. You're just a..." Before she could finish, Milo scooped up a handful of leaves and tossed them into the air, startling the older girls. Evie squealed, and Lyra and Orion cheered. Elior stepped forward, holding his pumpkin bucket high like a shield. The older girls blinked, overwhelmed by the sheer audacity and teamwork of the children. The playful chaos of the moment made them stumble back. Shayla tripped over a small root, cursing under her breath, and Marin muttered something about, "This isn't worth it." Finally, Livia huffed, throwing her hands in the air. "Whatever, this isn't fun anyway." She turned on her heel, followed by Marin and Shayla, and stalked off into the shadows of the neighborhood. Zayla let out a deep breath, lowering her arms beneath the ghost sheet. Elior ran into her embrace, hugging her tightly. "See? I told you we could do it," he exclaimed. "You did amazing," Zayla whispered, stroking his hair. She looked at the other kids, who were all smiling and cheering. "And so did all of you. I'm so proud of every single one of you." As they continued down the sidewalk, the tension of the moment melted into laughter and excitement once more. The night felt magical, the kind of Halloween magic that didn't come from decorations or candy, but from courage, unity, and the bond between a sister and her little brother. For the first time that evening, Zayla didn't feel embarrassed by her ghost costume. She felt unstoppable. And with Elior and the kids by her side, she knew that Halloween could never be ruined, no matter what anyone else thought. The night. Air had grown colder, the autumn wind carrying the crisp scent of fallen leaves and distant smoke from backyard bonfires. Zayla and her little crew, Elior, Evie, Lyra, Orion, and Milo, walked down the quiet street, pumpkin buckets clutched tightly, laughter still ringing after their previous confrontation. But just as they rounded a corner, they spotted them again. Livia, Marin, and Shayla were huddled near a porch decorated with flickering lights and fake tombstones, whispering and glancing in Zayla's direction. Their smirks told Zayla everything she needed to know. They hadn't forgotten, and they were plotting some kind of revenge. Elior tightened his grip on her hand. "Zayla? They're back," he whispered, his jaw set with determination. Zayla glanced at the kids she was supervising. Evie's hands were balled into fists. Lyra's eyes burned with determination. Orion's brows furrowed, and Milo's mischievous grin suggested he had ideas. Zayla inhaled deeply. She knew fear had no place here, not tonight. "You ready, guys?" she asked, her voice calm but commanding. "Yes," Elior shouted. "We've got this." As the older girls stepped forward, clearly intending to mock Zayla again, Elior took the lead. He lifted his pumpkin bucket high, his small frame brimming with confidence. "Stop right there! You're not going to scare us, or her," Livia sneered. "What are you going to do, little kid? Throw candy at us?" But Elior had a plan. He glanced at the others, whispering quickly, and they nodded, understanding immediately. Then the chaos began. Milo sprinted ahead and kicked a pile of dry leaves into the air, sending them swirling toward the bullies. Evie and Lyra joined in, clapping their hands and shrieking, creating a whirlwind of movement and sound that startled Livia, Marin, and Shayla. Orion ran in a zigzag pattern, darting in front of the bullies, forcing them to step back and lose their balance. Elior seized the moment. He ran toward them, holding his pumpkin bucket like a shield. "Zayla's not afraid of you. Leave her alone," he shouted, his voice ringing out with the clarity of someone twice his age. Zayla, feeling the surge of courage from her little brother and the kids, stepped forward herself. The ghost sheet fluttered around her like a cloak of determination. "Halloween is for fun, not for being mean," she yelled, her voice strong and unwavering. The bullies stumbled back, clearly unprepared for the coordinated chaos. Livia tripped over Milo's clever diversion, cursing under her breath. Marin tried to chase after her, but slipped on a stray pumpkin stem that Lyra had kicked strategically in her path. Shayla tried to regain composure but collided lightly with Orion, who had positioned himself perfectly to block her path. Elior, spotting the perfect opportunity, ran up to a small tree branch nearby. "Watch this!" he shouted. With a swift motion, he pulled it down and tossed it toward the bullies' path, making them step back even further. The branch didn't hit anyone, but the sudden movement caused them to scatter, tripping over decorations and leaves, their laughter replaced by frustrated shouts. Zayla's heart soared. She looked around at her little team, all of them beaming with triumph. "You did it! You were amazing!" she exclaimed, lifting her sheet in a victory flourish. Elior ran up to her, jumping into her arms. "We did it together," he said, his voice brimming with pride. The bullies, now thoroughly humiliated and disoriented, glared at the group one last time. "This isn't over," Livia muttered, her tone threatening but empty, as they finally turned and fled into the night. The group let out a victorious cheer. Zayla laughed, lifting her ghost sheet and spinning around, twirling in joy. "We didn't just survive Halloween, we owned it!" Evie, Lyra, Orion, and Milo danced around, their pumpkin buckets swinging, spilling a few candies in the process, but not caring in the slightest. Elior held Zayla's hand tightly, looking up at her with eyes shining like stars. "You were amazing too, Zayla. You're the best sister ever." Zayla knelt down, hugging him close. "And you're the bravest little brother ever. I couldn't be prouder." The group continued their Halloween journey, now with renewed excitement. Every porch, every jack-o'-lantern, every shadow in the street felt like part of their victory. Zayla realized that the night wasn't just about candy or costumes. It was about courage, standing up for yourself, and having people who would fight alongside you no matter what. As they walked back toward their neighborhood, the sound of laughter and celebration surrounding them, Zayla felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The bullies might have tried to ruin her Halloween, but they had failed. And the bond she shared with Elior and the kids she was supervising felt stronger than ever. Tonight, Zayla understood something important. Bravery doesn't come from age or size. It comes from standing up for what's right, protecting those you love, and knowing that sometimes even the smallest heroes can make the biggest difference. And as they disappeared into the glowing lights of their neighborhood, the ghost sheet flowing like a banner of triumph behind her, Zayla couldn't help but grin. Halloween had never felt this magical, and she knew that this night, these memories, and this victory would stay with her and Elior forever. The night had finally settled into a calm, gentle quiet. The streetlights glowed softly, casting long shadows across the sidewalks, while jack-o'-lanterns flickered on doorsteps like tiny guardians of the night. Zayla, still in her ghost sheet, walked slowly, hand in hand with Elior, watching the little group of kids she had been supervising chatter excitedly about their haul of candy. Evie and Lyra compared the chocolate bars they had collected. Milo proudly showed off a giant lollipop he had won from a house with a spooky game, and Orion carefully counted his candy, his expression one of pure satisfaction. The joy in their eyes was contagious, and Zayla couldn't help but smile. Elior squeezed her hand. "Zayla, tonight was amazing. I'm so glad you wore the ghost costume for me. Zayla knelt down and looked into his shining eyes. I'm glad too, Elior. Not just for the costume, but for letting me be part of your Halloween. Seeing you happy, that's the best thing in the world. The group of kids gathered around her, and Zayla felt a warmth spread through her chest. You all did amazing tonight, she said, her voice soft but filled with pride. You stood up, you protected each other, and you showed courage. That's more important than any candy we collected. Elior's small chest puffed up with pride. We were a team, and we won! Zayla chuckled, lifting her ghost sheet slightly and twirling for the kids. Yes, we won. Halloween didn't stand a chance against us. The group laughed, the sound echoing softly through the quiet streets. It was a laughter filled with triumph and camaraderie, a perfect ending to a night that had started with fear, but ended in victory. As they made their way back to Zayla and Elior's home, the little group began to disperse, parents calling for their children. Zayla stopped at the doorway of their house, watching each kid return safely, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was what Halloween was really about, not the candy or the costumes, but the shared joy, the bravery, and the bonds formed along the way. Once inside, Zayla and Elior dropped their pumpkin buckets on the counter and flopped onto the couch. Elior leaned against her, exhausted but still buzzing from the night's adventures. Zayla, can we do this again next year? He asked, his voice soft but hopeful. Zayla smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Of course we can. And next year, I promise, I'll wear whatever you want, just like tonight. Elior grinned and hugged her tightly. You're the best sister ever, and you're the bravest little brother ever, Zayla replied, hugging him back. As she looked around at the quiet living room, the candy scattered on the table, and the faint flicker of Halloween lights outside, Zayla felt a wave of gratitude. The bullies had tried to ruin the night, but they had failed. She had her brother, she had the kids she cared for, and she had courage she didn't know she possessed. That was more powerful than any fear, any teasing, and any sheet of fabric she had worn. With a final glance at Elior still smiling beside her, Zayla whispered softly to herself. Tonight was perfect. Truly perfect. And in that moment, the ghost sheet draped over her shoulders felt less like a costume and more like a symbol of bravery, love, and the magic of Halloween shared with the people who mattered most. The night had started with fear. It had been tested with cruelty, but it ended with triumph, laughter, and the unshakable bond between a sister, her little brother, and a group of kids who had all learned that courage comes in every size, every age, and every heart. Halloween had been conquered, and memories had been made to last a lifetime.